Welcome. So glad to have you here with me. This has been a fun topic to even think about. I was hoping to have my daughter back on the show with me, but we have a big Halloween party happening here tonight at her house, so she is neck deep in preparations for that. So I'm going to be doing the show by myself like I normally do. I wanted to talk about spirit visitations because I like Halloween. Halloween's fun, but most people, when they think about spirits, they're thinking of these scary interactions, frightening movies, and they're not like all like that. Generally, when spirits are visiting, it is just because number one, they might just want to get our attention. They want to let us know that they're with us, and just a kind of a comforting thing. And the other thing can be that you might just catch the sight or feel of a spirit that's going through an old routine. So there's things like I had my best friend in Maryland where I grew up. Her grandparents had a house on the Potomac, and it was this mansion that had been part of the Underground Railroad. And she and I loved to scare each other. We would take candles and lanterns and walk through the house and out down to the river at night, and we had some experiences there where we would see spirits walking. The spirits did not seem to see us or notice us, but they were just sort of walking through the house, varying places, and it was like they lived there at some point, and they were just going through a routine that they went through when they occupied that house. And it's a residual, so that's just a residual energy that we're seeing. There are the ones too, though, where you see a spirit or you feel them. And let's go with the see, though, because I really want to talk about that. Where you see the spirit and they see you, and there is an interaction. There is like a locking of eyes, or you might do something, say something, and they're responding to you most definitely. So it's not just you catching an old pattern. It's you seeing a spirit, them seeing you. That's a little different. Then there are the ones where it's your loved ones who are coming from the same realm where the angels are, and they're coming to you just to say, I'm still with you. And for me, that's definitely the biggest one as a psychic medium. I've had spirit coming to me, I used to just hate it. Oh my goodness, I hated it. And I didn't understand back then that I could set limits with spirit and say, you cannot come to me when I'm in my bed. You cannot come to me in my bedroom, my bathroom, wherever it is that just kind of freaks you out, or you just don't want to be bothered during that time. It's your time to just rest, relax, and get some sleep. So they used to come to me a lot at night. And one of the ones I remember most vividly, I was living in Maryland, and my mother owned and ran a nursery school. And so one of the second place we had the nursery school was this 3-story old home that had up on the top floor was like its own apartment. And at some point my mom and dad decided to put all of us girls up there. So at that time there were 3 of us girls, and we slept in this huge bedroom up there together, like a dormitory style. And there was no closet, so they got this big antique armoire and put it in the room, and that's where we kept our clothes. And at night I would make sure the armoire doors are closed. But back then, that was before I got the nickname Ivory, so my family called me Sherry. And in the middle of the night, I would hear the door creak open on that armoire, and I would hear, Sherry, Sherry. And I would just go under the covers and pull them over my head and just freak out under there. And it drove me nuts because my other sisters, one of them was very young, but the other one, we were close in age, they never heard it. And I couldn't understand that. There were so many things happening that they couldn't see. Well, the one sister doesn't have the frequency of a medium, but the other one, the little one, I think she was just so young she slept really deeply because she had amazing skills as a child. She knew about spirits. She saw them, heard them. She had great psychic skills. She's shut that down since then. But anyway, so that would go on every night. And there was a skeleton key that went with that. And we kept it in the bottom drawer of this armoire. So I took to taking the key out, locking the door of the armoire, Then I'd get in bed thinking, that'll take care of it. I'm going to get a good night's sleep. Nope. The middle of the night, Sherry, Sherry, totally wigged me out. I would not sleep up there. I just had horrible, I would finally pass out. I didn't understand back then that when spirit does that, it's almost always that they want something. I think that spirit, I do not think that was a spirit that was attached to me or my family. I think that was a spirit attached to that very old home. And they knew that I was a medium and could see and hear them. And they were just reaching out to me. But as a 9-10-year-old girl, I wanted no part of that whatsoever. So that's kind of part of the reason that I fought my gifts for so long. I don't want you to think that everyone who sees and hears angels also sees and hears spirit. I have not found that to be true. But I do think that if you see and hear spirit naturally, if you're born with that ability, odds are you do have that mediumship ability with spirit too. My goal is to help you not be so afraid, to understand that there's generally, most of the time, no more reason to be afraid of spirit than there is to be afraid of angels. So think about this. So your loved ones have crossed over and they've gone home. They truly have gone home. I had the immense privilege of being in the afterlife. I did not have a near-death experience. It was something more different than that. But I had the experience of being in the afterlife, being there, feeling it, seeing it, hearing it. It probably was not very long, but it felt like about 10-15 minutes to me. I was doing a mediumship reading for a client whose husband had just passed away. And he was not strong enough to communicate. He couldn't talk to me. He couldn't do much. And she needed something so badly. I could feel it, and I'm sure he could feel it. And it was like he took my face and turned my face. And then suddenly I saw what he saw. And I was in the afterlife. Oh, I feel the angels coming in just talking about that. And it was so beautiful. Like everything was extraordinary, vivid, unusual colors. Like the grass was magenta and some of the trees were turquoise blue and the sky was purple and clouds were multicolored. And there was this white fluff falling through the air, like floating around in the air. And I could hear angels singing. I could hear heavenly voices. I've heard them plenty of times in my life, so I knew what it was. Multiple angelic voices singing in harmonies that are just so beautiful. It made me cry, and I started having tears running down my face, and I can only describe it as breathing love, like just breathing, just standing there in the outdoors, in the afterlife, looking at this scene. I was breathing the emotion of love. So I came back out of that and I had tears going down my face, and she hugged me and she's like, he knew that I was afraid. I was not sure that there was anything when we die, and I wasn't sure where he went or what was waiting for me. And she was elderly. She was in her upper 80s, and she felt like her health was starting to fail, and she was terrified. She wanted to be with him in the afterlife, but she was terrified to take that step because she didn't know what was there. So when I say that when we die, we are actually going home, I mean that in such a literal way. It feels like you shed this burden of a body. You step into the place you came from, that you spent many more times there than you have in your body. And so there's all these spirit and angels waiting for you to greet you, to hug you, to talk about your experience in this life and what you did, what you learned, what you think you need to work on further. You know, all these things. They're just so happy to see you. And for them, you haven't been gone long. For you, you know, if you live to 100, it's just like that for them because there's no sense of time on the other side. So sometimes they just want to check on you. They just want to pop in and let you know, hi, it's Grandma, I'm still with you. I say Grandma because my Grandma Gill, who's my mother's mother, she and I were very close. I adored her. And when she passed, she had Alzheimer's, and so she didn't have quality of life left. And I understood, and I was very sad for her to cross because I would miss her. but almost immediately, like she came through with a dream visitation for me. But even more so, like I'm surprised if it happens now. I won't be surprised. I'm sitting in the guest room at my daughter's house, but so many houses I've been in, like I'll be talking about her thing, just how much I love her and how special she was, and like something will fall over that there's no way it could fall over. Like it's got things holding it up, it's weighted, and boom, it'll fall over very loudly. So that happens a lot with my grandma Gil. And also I feel her spirit coming in now as I'm talking about her. So when we talk about our loved ones who crossed, when we think about them, when we look at pictures, thinking fond memories, it's just like saying, come on in. And that veil parts and in they come. So is it any wonder that spirits are coming in and they just want to check in with you because they know you miss them and they're wondering how you're doing. They just want to visit, let you know that connection, the heart connection you still have with them is still there, still strong. It's a beautiful thing. And if you can step past that fear and just embrace this beautiful experience you're being given, what a gift that is to have somebody you loved who's crossed come in. Another experience I had as an adult was my dear friend Tony. We had lost touch for one reason or another, and then he died suddenly, and it was real devastating. And I was at the funeral. His family asked me to sing at his funeral. And just before I went up to sing, I felt him sit down in the empty chair to my left. And I heard him, he leaned in, I felt him, and he said in this ear, well, hello there, sweetheart, in his low-toned voice. And it made me smile. And I was like, don't cry, don't cry. But he just stayed like right there with me. Like he knew what was going on. He knew I was there. He knew I was going to sing. And we used to sing together. And I was able to go up and sing and not cry. You know, I think he just wanted me to thank me for being there and to let me know he loves me. And he was, you know, thinking of all of us, our close friends were there, all his kids. So you just never know when spirit's going to pop in. Another interesting experience I had, a lot of times spirits will pop in to me, visit me when I'm sleeping, and it's not always a visitation. Like if you don't know what the dream visitation is, it's the most beautiful gift a spirit can give you. It's where they come to you while you're dreaming, and it's so real. It's like you're with them, they're alive again, you can touch each other, hug, you see them clearly as a living person. And when you wake up, you'll remember it all so vividly. When my good friend Frank passed away back in the 90s, he came to me shortly after that. He wouldn't let me come see him. He had an illness. He didn't like how he looked. He felt like he wasn't handsome anymore. He didn't want me to see him like that, so I didn't get to say goodbye to him person to person. So he came to me looking like I remembered him, the handsome, dapper, great dressed, suave man. And we hugged, and he told me he's sorry, but he just didn't want me to see him like that. He wanted me to remember him, how he was during our friendship and before he got ill. And I remember exactly what he was wearing, his facial expressions, what he said, how he sat on the edge of the bed. Like that was decades ago, and I still remember that so vividly. So when you have that, take it, accept it as the gift that it is, because it takes a lot of energy for a spirit to come to you that strongly, that vividly, but they're giving you a level of healing that they know you need, and you probably know you need, and it just gives you such peace to have that. I've had a lot of people experience that with their children who passed, parents, siblings. It can be your friends, it can be anybody. For a medium, I think it's amazing I don't have more dream visitations, but I think it might be because I have so many when I'm awake, wide awake, that they figure, why bother? Let's go to somebody who can't see us and hear us, and we'll see them in a dream. But it's just sort of funny. So they most of the time are not scary. They sometimes can be startling at first, but if you talk yourself down and like, okay, who is this? Let's take some deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Get yourself calm and centered. Who is this? Who's here with me? Remember Ivory saying they're probably just visiting you to let you know they're with you, let you know they think of you, they love you. That helps take a lot of the scariness out of it and start going through. And, we've talked about this, like teaching yourself how to feel the feeling of angels. I want you to know that how you feel angels is how you'll feel spirit too. So if you missed that episode, go back to Feeling Angels, or you can get my book, that Let Your Angels Lead. It walks you through exercises to teach yourself to feel the energy of your angels. Once you feel that, that's how you feel spirit too. So if you feel a spirit or you see something spirit related, calm yourself down and say, okay, is this mom? Is this dad? And you're waiting to feel that energy, because you know how you feel it. You're going to get a big burst of it as a yes. So is it mom? Is it dad? Is it grandma? Is it grandpa? Until you get that burst, because you might not be able to tell. It's not like it is with angels where they come through and they have their specific colors and it's so easy to tell because of that. Sometimes with spirit, they come in, but they don't show themselves. Or if they do, they take on a light form that's more like a ball of light, or those, we've talked about the spirit lights, the little sparks of light like angels can do. Just a little less energy, but just to let you know, here's a little visual that I'm here with you. Notice this, so maybe you will see that light. Maybe you will see a ball of light, or like a light moving like this, or just a little tiny pinpoint of light spark, or it zips across the room. I think that when they zip like that, they look like tiny little comets moving across the room. So they might do that just to get your attention, and then you can tune in to see who it is. So I did tell you that the other night here at my daughter's house, we had some experiences. It was interesting. We were sitting in the living room, and her oldest son, my oldest grandson, who decided he was going to sleep out in the tent because he's in Boy Scouts. He wants to get his Eagle Scout. And that's one of the things he has to do, is like 6 nights sleeping outside in a tent. So he went out to the tent, and maybe 5 minutes later, we hear this on the back window. Like about 8 raps like that, loud. And we're right by this big picture window looking out to where the tent is, which is maybe 10 feet away. And we're like, where is he? Because we don't see him at the window. And then Michelle, my daughter, turned the light on, and he was like back where the tent is, and it's not easy to get there. We're like, how did he get there so fast? And she goes back and she's like, wait a minute, Gavin, did you just knock on the window? I said, what? Did you just knock on the window or on the window frame? No. Why? And she's like, oh, well, we just heard rap, 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 rap. It was loud. Then he got a little freaked out. He decided he needed to come in and sit with us in the living room. He's like, I don't want to be out there by myself. So we sat in there talking about that, because my daughter had just told me a story about this house, which thank God is not nearly as active as their last house. But her husband is gone sometimes at night, and one night she thought he came home and got into bed. She felt the bed move, she heard it, and then when she turned over, there's nobody there, and he wasn't home. She's like, who was that? And she just told me the story, and we hear that rap, 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 rap on the window. So we're like, that's creepy. That's creepy. Something is saying, yep, that was me. Let me tell you who I am. It was probably somebody who lived in the house before. But that's the only thing that's happened, is like her experiencing that, thinking, just absolutely presuming her husband was home. You know what it feels like if you sleep with somebody. You know what it feels like when they get in bed and they pull the covers up and turn over, and then there's nobody there. It's like, that was creepy. So between that and the window wrapping, we're like, okay, here we go. It's Halloween. But then again, there's 3 psychic mediums in the house right now. We don't even know about the little guy yet. He's too young. But I'm a psychic medium. My daughter's a psychic medium, though she doesn't do it professionally. And my oldest grandson has those skills. So you've got 3 people in the house with that frequency. Things are going to get interesting. There's just no way around it. But I wanted to share with you some other things that happen that are just like harmless, that you might identify with. So one of the things was, when I lived in Maryland, one of our last houses, my father was a contractor, and he built a house in this development called Oak Acres, out in Frederick, Maryland, and it was in part of the Appalachians. And in the afternoon, I would get home from school and nobody else would be there for like an hour and a half. And I went into my mom and dad's bedroom and I'm sitting on the floor at the end of the bed watching the TV in there. And I heard the front door close, footsteps going across the tile floor, cupboards moving, opening and closing in the kitchen. And I'm like, oh, hi, Mom. And dead silence. And I'm a kid, I was 13 years old. I'm just into whatever I'm watching. So I'm watching my show. And I realized a little time went by and she didn't come in and say hi. So I turn off the TV. Excuse me. Allergies, big allergies here. And I went in to check and see, and she's not home. The house is completely locked up. Checked the whole house. Nobody's there. And I found out later that there'd been a lot of Native American stuff in that area. So I don't know if it was something attached to the land, because as far as we knew, that whole area, that development was undeveloped land till recently, and the land where Dad built the house, as far as anyone knew, had never had anything built on it before. But spirits can be attached to the land itself. And I've had that since then too. But it was a lot of activity. Almost every day something like that was going on. And there were times when I was laying in my bed. My bedroom was on the far side of the house from everyone else's. And at night, there would be this triangular light would shine up from behind this upholstered chair in the corner up onto the ceiling, and you'd see a perfect triangle of light. And I was like, what is that? And I'd go down into the basement and check. No lights are on. No one's down. There's nothing down there to explain that light. I would find wet footprints from the front door, which was just outside of my bedroom, to the side of my bed. And sometimes wet footprints back to the front door, which was creepy. And things of that sort, just like it's obviously there's something going on there, and I think it was interested in me, probably because I'm a medium. But there was a lot of things going on there that just got to the point where I wouldn't go to sleep at night. I had a little TV. I'd wait till everybody went to bed and I'd watch that TV till I'm ready to pass out. And back then, there was not much on TV, late night especially. It was pretty sad. But I was desperate to not feel alone with all that activity. When you're young, when you're first having these experiences, you don't know what to do with it. I just knew nobody else in my family was experiencing these things. And I remember saying to so many people, like, I don't understand why every house I've ever lived in is haunted. And when I studied with Suzanne Wilson, Carefree Medium for Mediumship, she's laughing. She's like, well, you're a medium. You're like this magnet for spirit. So everywhere you go, there's spirit. And even here, like I come here, this is my second visit to my daughter's new house. The other night, I felt something I feel at home a lot, where it's like something bounces on the bed and I'm alone in here. Something bounces on the mattress, or like a fist comes down hard on the mattress, just like trying to wake me up. And I'm like, nope, not happening, get out. Then I have to set the boundaries all over again, that not only are you not allowed to come to me in my bedroom at home, but you're not allowed to come to me in this bedroom either. Even a medium deserves time away from all of the spirit stuff. I do not want to be contacted constantly. So, sometimes the things are wonderful and magical, and sometimes they're just annoying. I've had a really interesting experience. I was living in Cave Creek just before I moved back up to Central Arizona, and I was laying in bed feeling sick. I had a sinus infection or something. It was broad daylight, and in walks a strange man into my bedroom. And he's real tall and skinny. He had on blue jeans, a blue jean jacket, and a blue jean baseball cap, and his hair was straight and dry and like straw blonde. He looked a little bit like maybe a farmer. He walked into my bedroom, turned right and looked right at me and said, "Double down." And then he turned and walked right into the corner where my office setup was and disappeared. I'm like, okay, it's going to be one of those kind of days, is it? And there were plenty of times when I would see things like, okay, I don't know if you know what a doppelganger is, but I think this was. I was coming home and I saw my then boyfriend outside of the garage wearing one shirt, and then he disappeared. He just was like gone around the corner. I'm like, well, that's weird. Why didn't he come over and say hi? And then I go inside and he's sitting at his desk wearing different clothing than I saw him in. I said, were you just outside? And I could tell he was a writer. I could tell he was deep into it. He's like, no. Why? Then I saw it again at the base of the stairs another time, a total, like wearing different clothes, but it was him. Same house. So sometimes these things are just going to happen and you're not going to know exactly what it is going on, but you have to go with it. Just to give you an idea, like, I know it's going to sound like I've lived in a million houses. I've lived in a ton of houses because my father was a contractor. Then I married a contractor the first time. So I was living in a house in Surprise, Arizona. And one day I came out into the living room and I saw my boyfriend sitting in the chair, my then boyfriend sitting in a chair to the left at his desk working. I left him alone. I went into the kitchen, started making coffee. I turned around and he's not there. I thought, where did he go? And I went and looked and he's still sound asleep in the bedroom. He hadn't even gotten up yet. So I'm not sure who that was. I saw that same spirit a couple of times and he just looked very similar to that boyfriend I had at the time with the same height, body shape, and dark curly hair. And I saw him frequently, and a few things happened at that house is where I put together a new paranormal investigative team. And we had a videographer, Barry, who was in our group, great guy, and he wanted to do an investigation at our house. And the reason was that we had had an experience in the living room where we finished an investigation, came back to our house. I had made coffee for people, and I was pouring coffee, and this woman pulled her cup away right as I started to pour it. You didn't hear anything out loud. And then she put it back and I poured it in. So on the recording later, it was so crystal clear, we actually did not identify that at first as a spirit. We thought it was somebody, we thought one of us said it, but we couldn't remember anybody saying it. So what we heard was boot steps going across the tile floor, a long way across the tile floor. And then right at the second that I started to pour and she pulled her cup away, you heard this voice say, "Don't do that," like a Chicago gangster voice. And then when she put it back and I poured it, you heard him say, "Now that's the way to do it." And then you heard boot steps walking away. Nobody had on boots. Nobody was walking at that time. And it was so crystal clear. I should put that. I'll put that on somewhere so you can hear it and let you know. It's pretty crazy. So when we told Barry about this, he's like, we should do some investigations at your house. And we did do some investigations. So one of them, we were in the bedroom, and because I had a lot of experiences in there, and he had the videotape running, and I was talking to the spirit, and at one point I said, "Do you guys hear that singing?" And they're like, "No, what do you mean?" And I sang it for them, like, la, 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 la. They're like, "No." And then later we listened to the video back and you could hear the ghost sing it and then I sing it. And so then they could hear it. Another experience, another investigation, and back in the bedroom again, they were encouraged by that. And Barry got frustrated. He liked to provoke spirit, and I didn't like that. And clearly spirit didn't like it either, because he said he knew that spirit had a crush on me, and it's a long involved story, but he said something like, "What do you think about Ivory being with her boyfriend?" And right then, like, he stumbled and fell to the floor, and I turned on the light. I'm like, "What is happening?" He said, "Something pushed me down." So we're like, quit provoking spirit. Of course he doesn't like that. But we had so many circumstances, so many things. We did an investigation in it was in Prescott, where I'm from. Prescott, Arizona, at the Vendome Hotel. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's haunted. You can stay there. And our paranormal group did an investigation in the room that the now ghost lived in with her cat for a long time when she was alive. And we had numerous things happen. like there was a do not disturb sign on the door that just sort of froze in an upright position. There's, if you know do not disturbs do not stay up by themselves. They swing down under the doorknob, but it swung up and stayed there. And it was like the cat was on top of the dresser and there was a heavy brass thing up there, and all of a sudden that brass thing, you felt like this scrambling, like you heard like claws, and then that brass thing went flying 5 feet across the room in the other direction, as it would if a cat started scrambling and like its back legs kicked the brass plate across the room. And then one of the ladies said, I said, go around and just touch one of us. And this lady says, but not me. And right away the spirit just enveloped her. She was freezing cold to the point where we had to wrap her in all of our coats, and she was still cold. And so spirit can have a sense of humor too. Like, it's best just to not call attention to yourself if you're doing something like that. There's plenty of times that my daughter and I were staying in Jerome, Arizona, which is close to where I live. It's an old mining town. It was a ghost town for a while. And the old hospital from the mining days is now called the Jerome Grand Hotel. And I used to take my daughter there for her birthday, and we would spend the night, have dinner, explore Jerome, and head home. So we were there for her 10th birthday. And I had my best friend with me. She had her best friend with her. And I woke up in the middle of the night. Something woke me up, and I saw a very good-looking man standing at the end of the bed. And he was dressed in a surgeon's outfit. He had on a cloth mask, and it was green, and he had on the gown. And he had dark hair, and you could see the mustache and dark eyes. And he was just standing at the foot of the bed looking at me. So I just looked at him, and he stayed about 40 minutes, and then he disappeared. And I wasn't going to wake people up to say, hey, there's a spirit in here. I figured, let's let them get a good night's sleep. So the next morning, my daughter's all excited. She runs down and tells the then owner of the hotel what happened. And they're like, oh my gosh, we have to get this documented. We're trying to get all the activity documented. And they asked us what room we were in. And when we told him, he said, oh, that was recovery. That was the recovery unit from surgery. And that he showed me some pictures of the surgeons who worked in that hospital back the turn of the century. And I saw this man. I saw the surgeon, and he was very identifiable. He got to look like an old-time movie star. And he said, no one's seen him before. And I thought, well, that's interesting. He was definitely there on the job, still wearing his surgical scrubs, doing his job. And he just hung out. He just stared at me, probably was like, oh, she sees me. And then he was gone. Another hotel in Jerome called the Mile High Inn. I was there for my honeymoon. And the night after we got married, we just loved Jerome. So we drove over and we stayed, and it was in winter, so it was empty except for us. And it's on top of a little restaurant. And we're in our room, and I think I went into the bathroom, and I felt somebody breathing on my face. I felt this, and I could hear the breathing, and I could feel it, the breath on my face. And then when I left and went into the bedroom, there was like a misty handprint on the mirror in there that was too small to be my husband's at the time. So that was interesting, and actually it was just sort of following us around. They said we could explore the different rooms. They were themed rooms, really cute, and we're looking at them, and I could still hear that spirit. It sounded like it was winded, which is understandable because Jerome is built on the side of a mountain, and you can't go anywhere without climbing steep hills, steep staircases. So it seemed to be old and winded. It wasn't trying to scare me, but it was definitely winded, and it was just following us room to room. It's probably glad to have some company. And then there's been a lot of experiences, such as going to, in Jerome, there's this kind of cheesy old gold mine, but kids like going there because it has old motors running, generators and things. And you don't really get to go into a mine, but there is an area where you get to like crack open geodes and things of that sort. So I was there with an investigative group, and we decided to go into these little cabins because we had found out that each of those little cabins had been brought there from ghost towns around the state. One in particular was brought from Walker, Arizona, which is just out in the Prescott area near Lynx Lake. And it was put there, and they had it set up like a little schoolhouse. And I was standing on the front porch, and nobody was inside the building or around it. And I clearly heard, "Mommy?" And on the recording, you can hear it so clearly. And like right then, I felt a little hand like go inside and cup my hand, like hold my hand, a little tiny hand. And it came through very clearly on the recording. So, there was some little spirit there that was looking for their mom. And I was a mom, so it's like, I'll come to you. It was really sweet. But they're everywhere. People will ask me questions like, where's a good place to find spirit? I'm like, everywhere you go, because spirit is everywhere, and it's not something to be afraid of. I think they're just there. Sometimes my grandson asked me a question last night, the older one. Why are there spirits? Like, why don't they just cross over into heaven? And I had explained to him, sometimes they don't want to. Sometimes they're too attached to a place or a person that they don't want to leave. Sometimes they're afraid to cross over. Maybe they think they haven't been a good person, or they don't believe in an afterlife, and so they're afraid of what's waiting for them. And sometimes they're stuck. They're looking for a way to cross, and they don't know how. So I'm leading into something specific with this story. When I do paranormal investigations, my goal is to help spirit cross to the other side. Any spirits that are stuck here in this realm, or were stuck and are ready to cross and don't know how, need a little help, my friends and I will help them cross. So the first time I did that was down in the Phoenix area with that initial group I told you about. And we were joining hands in a cemetery. And I just said, if there's any spirits here that would like to cross over, we would love to help you. We're going to create a portal for that. And you can just come right underneath it and cross to the other side, and you don't have to be here anymore. And one came through, and then another one, and then there was this incredible rush of spirits, like whoosh. I mean, we were just like, all of our eyes got like this, and we could just feel this whoosh of energy. So many spirits crossing over, and that's when I realized what a great need there is to help these spirits, because yes, it's fun for paranormal investigators to have haunted places to visit, but is it fun for spirit? No. They're not supposed to be lingering here. They're supposed to be crossing to the other side, going back home, as we discussed earlier. So that's always, with my friends and I, when we do that, that is our primary goal. I mean, we will do a little investigation, but as soon as we feel some spirits there that want to go, form that circle and invite them and create that portal. And there's always, especially in a cemetery, there's always this rush, just incredible amounts of spirit that are trying to cross over. It's for the best. Lately, there's been a lot more contacts for me from people who feel like they need their house cleansed, their property cleared, business cleared of energy. When you need your energy cleared in a building, okay, if it's a home, it could be that there's activity that's frightening to you, or children, keeping the children awake. Sometimes spirit activity that's negative will make people fight with each other. They'll feel emotions will be magnified. There'll be more discord, more arguments, more violence, and you want to get rid of that spirit. If it's attached to the land, that's trickier. It's harder to get that off, but it's possible. And then there's the spirits that are, what do I want to say here? We talked about attached to the house, attached to the land. I was headed towards something specific here. Now I probably lost my train of thought. It happens. Go figure. There's all kinds of clearings. Okay, so lately I'm getting tons of people requesting, especially business clearings. So if you have a location where businesses can't make it, it's a good location, plenty of traffic, nothing that you visibly that you could think of it's wrong, but no business can make it there. There's a lot of turnover. That's a good reason to get a clearing, to just clear the energy there, get anything out that shouldn't be. Sometimes it can be spirit activity that's holding things back that makes it not successful. And the other thing lately is I'm getting a lot of calls from local people who live near this old cemetery in Cottonwood telling me that they're having some scary things that are scaring their kids. It might not scare adults, but it would scare kids. So that's another reason, like, we kind of focus on cemeteries to go in and clear those spirits so that the people living around there are not getting bombarded with spirit activity. You know, that can get real old real fast. And you just want your kids to feel safe and secure, and you don't want to have to deal with that. So there's all kinds of reasons and places. I've had so many times that the first thing that happens when somebody I love crosses, before anybody can even tell me, I will get a visitation from them where they come to me. I'm wide awake, but I see this color, kind of like with angels, but it's a color I haven't seen before, or a mix of colors I haven't seen before. And right away I'm on guard. I'm like, oh no, who's crossed? You know, who is this? That happened with an ex-boyfriend's father who I was close with. He came to me the night he passed, and I had to tell his son, I'm so sorry, but your father's passed. How do you know? 'Cause he's here with me right now. And he was just a real sweet man. And it was kind of good because then he could call his mom and she didn't have to try to track us down. We were on vacation. And another time I was on vacation, I'm in a hotel, and a spirit I hadn't seen before comes in, and I knew it was connected to me, but I didn't know about anybody passing. And it just came in really briefly, hovered over me, like enveloped me in energy, and then was gone. And when I got home, I found out that my good friend Tony had passed away unexpectedly that day, and he had just visited me because he could. We hadn't seen each other in several years, and he came to that hotel because spirit can find your energy. It's like a GPS tracking. It's like a little beeping locator that they can follow to find you wherever you are. So for me as a medium, that's kind of what daily existence is like. Like, people are like, how does spirit find you when you're out of state? Well, I might have 1 or 2 nights of peace, and then it's like they found my locator, and there they are again, like touching me, bouncing on the bed, trying to get my attention, knocking on the windows, you know, the usual things that I deal with at home. So it is different, and you're not going to experience it to that level unless you are a medium, or unless you really try to develop and you reach out and ask for that kind of contact. So don't worry that you're going to get bombarded with it. And just because you develop your skills connecting with angels does not mean you automatically will attract spirits. So you don't need to worry about that. They can be separate from one another, and most people will never need to worry about it. But because it's Halloween, I thought it would be fun to talk about some different spirit activity situations I've had through the years. There's many, many more. And I was hoping my daughter would be here because I wanted her to tell you, but I'm going to tell you. When she was a little girl, about 9 or 10, she and I lived alone. And she would tell me in the morning, there was this beautiful lady came to visit me with her dog. And the woman always wore a long yellow gown. She had long hair, and she had like I think it was a greyhound dog from her description. And she would go into my daughter's room and let Michelle pet the dog. Michelle loved dogs. And so she would tell me, the lady came last night, and she was always happy. I'm like, did you have a good time? Yes, she was very nice, and she let me play with her dog again. And so I didn't worry about it because she wasn't scared. And she looked forward to it. She wanted that spirit to come to her. But there were a lot of things in that house that happened, and perhaps next Halloween we shall talk about that again. For now, I'm going to end today's show and invite you to come back next week. We have a whole different topic, And I hope that you have a beautiful week. May your angels surround you, protect you. May you feel them in your whole fiber of being. Bye-bye.